Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love. I'm here back again with sports OV topics for episode number 68. Today on the podcast, reviewing week 4 of the NFL 2021 was just recap the Raiders Chargers game. Um, So, which caps off a very storytelling week 4 of the NFL season. Of course, I'll also go over my predictions of week 5 at the end of the podcast. But thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast and if you want to see more videos, click that subscribe, as well as if you like this video, click the like button as well. So, went 11-5 with my predictions in week 4, which not bad. Fell off a little from last week being 12-4, but I mean, want to be increasing, don't want to go decreasing as far as my picks go, but did all right. A bunch of good games, so some intriguing games happened in week 4. And it started off on the right foot. So, Thursday Night Football, we had Jaguars go to Cincinnati. We had Trevor Lawrence versus Joe Burrow. 2, of course, it's the first time since they met LSU versus Clemson in the national championship a year and a half ago. This, I would say, lived up to the hype that it was given. It was a good game. The Jaguars, I must say, they opened it up, which you like to see. I mean, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags offense has not gone off to the right foot, really. I mean, you see glimpses and good spots here and there, but ultimately not the way it was sort of his career. And then on Thursday night, they implemented more of the run of Trevor Lawrence, which helped balance things out. Got Cincinnati's defense thinking. It was 14-0 half. Could have been more, but Trevor Lawrence was stopped just shy of the goal line. And kind of a confidence booster for the Bengals. And thus, the second half, it was all about adjustments, and Joe Burrow just clicked on all cylinders with Uzama. Joe Mixon had a good night until he was injured. Jamar Chase got his targets as well. Of course, they were without T. Higgins and Jesse Bates, but they still made it work for the Bengals. And on a last second field goal to boost the Bengals to 3-1 and in first place in the AFC North, which is a very competitive division. So for Baltimore and Cleveland, but good confidence booster for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. just one more win they need, and they will tie their win total of last season. So that's a very big momentum going forward, and the offense is clicking. As for Trevor Lawrence, you know, he'll rebound. I mean, the Jaguars team as a whole doesn't have a lot of really good offensive talent, but they're still, I mean, DJ Chark that help him going out. Trevor Lawrence, we see improvements. I mean, people don't want to say moral victories, but at the same time, we saw growth and improvement out of the Jaguars offense on Thursday night, which is a good thing, at least take away from a solid game on Thursday night. Then we get to Sunday games, and this one gets a little more dicey. So, two overtime games on Sunday. So, the first, the Jets, Jets. The Jets got their first win of the season. They beat an unmanned Tennessee Titans team without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Still, the Titans fought well, you know, and not once but twice from being down and put together touchdown drives in order to make it a overtime affair. And ultimately, they had a chance at the end, but miscommunication. The defense held tight. Randy Bullock misses a field goal, and it's not a tie. It's a win for the New York Jets, so good for them. Zach Wilson played his best game so far as a pro, and showed his more of his potential as to why he was taken number 2 overall in the draft. So then we got to the Chiefs versus the Eagles in the city of brotherly love. Andy Reid back in Philly. You got the Kelsey brothers facing off, Travis and Jason. Of course, Jason is the center of the Eagles. Still a stout matchup for the majority of it, but the Chiefs win 42-30. They didn't have a lot of explosive plays as you think the Chiefs do. It was more meticulous and long play drives, which continues the involvement, and you know that teams are going to take away the explosive, or at least try to take away the explosive plays of the Chiefs, and they kind of had their way. Now, again, it's the Eagles, and they've been on a back burner since week 1, but still, the Chiefs won it, and they're back to 500 after a weird skid to start the season. Then we got to the Cowboys and the Panthers. Cowboys put the first loss on Carolina's record. They win 36-28. Sam Darnold, I will say, I mean, he had another dose of rushing touchdowns in this game. He's getting it done with his legs as well as his arm. And mostly this was about the Cowboys, I would say, offense. They just really opened it up. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a shootout, but then the Cowboys offense just opened it up, and it was pretty much catch up for the Panthers, but ultimately the Cowboys took it home. And then speaking of overtime, the seconds, like I said, had two overtimes on Sunday. First time back in the Superdome for the Saints, and a long time with fans. And the Giants, play spoiler, they get their first win of the season. They win this 27-21. They outscored, or excuse me, they had 17 unanswered points from the fourth quarter and beyond. And, kudos to Daniel Jones, kudos to Saquon Barkley. He had a good game as well. But primarily Daniel Jones. The Saints, I mean, they are, I would say, out of all the teams thus far this season, they're the team that has me scratching my head probably the most because, you know, they obviously blew out the Packers week one, and they got blew out by the Panthers week two. Last week, they took care of business against the Patriots. Now on Sunday, only scored 21 points. I mean, you know, the identity kind of the Saints. You know, they are not trying to overexpose Jameis Winston. They are trying to heave it through the running game with Alvin Kamara and company, and make it easier on Jameis Winston with instilling some plays of Taysom Hill. But at some point, you gotta open the leash, I would say, a little bit, is all I'm saying. But good for Giants because they've been in their games most part thus far and could easily be 2-1 instead, or 3-1, excuse me. What I did not expect was in dicey weather, the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields in his first, or actually his second start, excuse me, he looked better this time against the Lions in Chicago. They hold on 24-14. I mean, the Lions, they just messed this up a bunch. They had mistakes, you know, inside the red area. They had that weird fumble that bounced off for Goff and then wound up with the Bears. I mean, just odd, but good to see Fields look better. And, you know, hopefully they can galvanize with Fields and make it easier on that defense because a good offense helps out and complements a good defense. And that's what the Bears need. And some juice. The Bills, they posted their second shutout of the season. They shut out the Texans 40-0. You know, there was a bit of a scare in at the start of the game when Josh Allen, it was probably the weather or just a good play by Texans, but they picked off Josh Allen and they had good field position. They just couldn't get the job done. And it was all Bills offense from there. And the Bills are just wildly much better and very good to see. Week one against the Steelers feels like so long ago compared to this team right now. It's just crazy to see. So then you got the Colts first beating the Dolphins in Miami 27-17. You know, without Quinn Nelson, but having Eric Fisher there again made it helpful for Carson Wentz, and Jonathan Taylor had a solid game. I mean, it really helped him out, hopefully, because Carson Wentz has dealt with a bunch to start this season. You know, he missed preseason with that foot issue, and then coming back, and then he had that ankle issue against the Rams, and just hopefully he's healthier, and hopefully now they can build on this uh, after a slow start to the season. The offense of the Dolphins, I'm concerned about, with Tua or not. It just feels like this offense feels just strange. Just strange. And then in a shootout, the Washington, they came back after a slow start to beat the Falcons with a last minute touchdown, 34-30. They get back to 500. Taylor Heineke, he is playing solid for them, and you like to see it. Against the Bills, he was kind of frazzled, but I mean, going against Josh Allen and trying to keep up with that offense is a bit much to ask, but at the same time, here against Matt Ryan in Atlanta, they get it done. That crazy touchdown in the back of the end zone to Terry McLaurin, that was a beauty, I must say. And good for Washington. Atlanta, their offense, it's starting to feel like last season a bit all over again. As in, Their offense is still creating numbers, but that defense is failing them so far yet again. And then in a telling story of events, the Seahawks and Santa Clara beat their rival 49ers 28-21. Mistakes by San Francisco, Seattle capitalized. Russell Wilson scored a few touchdowns. Trey Lance, he entered the game in the second half. Jimmy G got injured. He did manage to score 2 touchdowns and put them within some distance to keep this close because it was 28-7. But unfortunately, he couldn't get the job done. And, you know, so and so by Lance, but gonna have a tough task next Sunday playing the Cardinals. And speaking of the Cardinals, they, in a shocking effort, beat. Well, I picked the Cardinals, but I didn't think it was going to be this kind of lopsided. The Cardinals won 37-20, beating the Rams. I mean, at first notice, it looked like it was going to be a shootout, but then once you see the Rams driving when it's 21-10, and you're like, okay, it's going to be a shootout, and then Stafford, they don't connect with Cup, and they're forced to sell a field goal. That kind of was the starting point of, okay, perhaps this could get ugly, and indeed it did. Cardinals, the only unbeaten left in the league. Something to be said about that. And AJ Green still looks strong, still looks behind DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, hard to say. Nothing that was hard to say in Green Bay. The Packers won 27-17, although it wasn't even that close. Well, Steelers got off to a heck of a start. Roethlisberger threw a touchdown and is one of the fellow other quarterbacks to throw for 400 plus touchdown passes, but it just missed timing. And going into half could change the game. It looked like the well, the kick was blocked, the field goal was blocked, and was taken in for a touchdown, but they called it offsides on Joe Hayden. And instead of 17-14, Steelers going to half, it's 17-10 Green Bay. And from there, it was just mostly Green Bay. It's just stunning how, well, it's not really surprising because Pittsburgh's offense, in a way, they did a disservice to Big Ben. Reason being, they pretty much ravaged the O-line in the offseason. A whole different O-line. Rookie running back, Najee Harris. I mean, it's just disappointing to see Pittsburgh's offense thus far, and they have yet to score over 20 points offensively, or at least 20 points offensively. Then we go from Green Bay to Denver. Baltimore Ravens, they, after a tic-tacky win with a record-setting kick from their kicker, Justin Tucker, to beat the Lions in Detroit, they go to Denver, and now it was a relatively close game to start, but Teddy Bridgewater, he got injured, and Drew Lock basically started the whole second half. And, you know, from there, I mean, you're not taking reps with the starters. And yes, Drew Lock has been with this team, but still, for a majority of time and against this Ravens team, you're being thrusted into there is just a hard feat. Hope Bridgewater gets healed ASAP, and the Broncos, another team knocked from the unbeatens. 23-7, Ravens win. And then the game that we were all pretty much had our eyes towards. Even if you're not a Buccaneers or a Patriot fan, you were looking at this game pretty much with all of that was coming into it. How would it play out was a heck of a way to end, a fitting way to end Sunday. Flea of action. As the Buccaneers win this 19-17 off a miss, what would have been the game leading field goal by Nick Folk and the Patriots. I mean, 20 years spent with Brady and Belichick. Now this game. And how convenient that it rains so close to this game. And it looked like emotions and the weather play a factor in this game because Brady was off on passes. Mac Jones, the rookie, played in this spot. He played very well for the circumstances he was in, and he looked also off to start, but once they got into the game, they got drives going, and no Gronk, which obviously hurt the Bucks in the red zone or the end zone. But the Buccaneers got it done, 19-17. And then the Raiders also knocked from the unbeatens by the Chargers. Just now looking at the score. 28-14. Now it was 21-0 at the half, and the Chargers, you know, the story of this game was their defense, and I mean, pretty stunning. I mean, now in the second half, the Raiders had 3 good drives, 2 routes into touchdowns, make it a touchdown game. On the third drive, they couldn't capitalize on third down to keep the drive going, and they missed the field goal. But hats off to the Chargers. They built off that statement game for the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and then they come home to play the Raiders, who were then undefeated, coming in and beating them in good fashion, although it looked a little bit of a different story in the second half. So and so. But as for the Raiders, you know, I said this earlier, but they need now to get into a better start. Now, they will drop to 3-1. They will drop to second in the division now, or I'm not sure how the standings will be affected. I know there'll be a 3-way tie for 3-1, but since Chargers beat the Raiders, that will catapult them to first place. But they built off that win to this. Raiders, they need to get in the better starts because their first 4 games, they've been slow starting for most of these games, and they've been falling behind, and they need to play faster. They need because their offense has a bunch of weapons and they know how to be explosive. But not every time can you fall behind and be able to come back, because that's just not how the league works. You have to, at some point, be able to play with a lead and not always have to expect that miracle at the end. But Raiders don't, in my opinion, don't fall too hard from this. They beat who they beat, and they fall 3-1. So they'll rebound from this, I'm sure, but heck of a win for the Chargers. So anyway, that's week 4. My recap of week 4, all the games. Now we go into week 5. Another interesting week. And once again, 16 games where I believe, so starting week 6, we'll start to get some buys. So this is going to be the last week with 16 games for a while. So gotta make these picks count again. So week 5, starting off with a bang. NFC West, the best division in football. Rams coming off that bitter defeat against the Cardinals yesterday or Sunday. They go to Seattle to face their foes who, coming off that big win over San Fran and San San Francisco. Rams 2.5 point favorites. You know, the Rams showed you what they can do against the Super Bowl defending champions and the Buccaneers last week. And coming off that bitter defeat, I think they'll rebound from this. You know, the Seahawks offense, it can come and go. Really. I mean, Russell Wilson, we love him, but when it's not a good run or an explosive pass, it's really nothing there. So I'm going with the Rams to rebound from that weird defeat at the hands of the Cardinals to rebound in Seattle against the Seahawks 28-24 in Seattle. Then we're back in London. Back in London. The NFL is back in London as the Jets. I mean, you can't really say at because it's pretty much a neutral game. Jets face the Falcons. Jets got their first win in overtime against the Titans. Falcons lost a close one to Washington. You know, kind of going back and forth on this game because uplifter for the Jets. But the Falcons have still shown their way to score against good defenses. It's just a question, can their offense make a stop? And it's basically a neutral site game. So Falcons minus 3.5. I'm going with the Falcons 23-17 in London. Next, we got Minnesota. Lions going to Minnesota to play their division foes, the Vikings. In Minnesota, Vikings 7.5 point favorites. You know, Vikings could easily have a better record than what they have. You know, they had the big win against Seattle. It was a defensive battle against Cleveland on Sunday. Lions offense is bad, or defense, excuse me, is bad. And with Dalvin Cook getting more healthy, you know, I just think this is a get right game for the Vikings. to at least be 2-3. And kind of right the shit a little bit against the Lions. The spread is 7.5, so I'll say 30-20 for Detroit. So yeah. So Vikings winning 30-20. Then we have the Saints, who have looked bizarre. The 2-2 Saints, going to Washington to play Washington football team, both 2-2, both looking to get above 500, both in competitive divisions. You know, the Saints offense is what it is. You can clearly tell that they're being cautious with Jameis Winston. They don't want to overexpose him. The Washington's offense isn't great, but you can kind of tell that they're consistent with what they are. And they can score over 30 points. They have done that twice. And that defense, while it hasn't been what many people have thought it would be to start the season, scoring a good amount of points with that talent on defense is a good note. And I just think with Washington, with the way the Saints love to be on offense, I just think it's a good matchup for Washington. And they get this done. A tight one again, 24-22 over or over New Orleans. So then we got the Patriots going to Houston to play the Texans. Davis Mills, he looked okay against Panthers, against Buffalo, did not. Um, Now they welcome the Patriots to town, coming off that emotional game against the Buccaneers. But I think now the Patriots, after all that, are itching to get their next win. Patriots 9-point favorites. So I'm going with the Patriots. Get the sub in Houston 27-16. They cover. So then we got speaking of the other side of the coin, got the Buccaneers. They host the Dolphins after that game on Sunday night. Buccaneers 10.5-point favorites. You know, the Dolphins offense is a bit in question. They had a sore performance against the Colts. Here against the Buccaneers, now, yes, they have an injury-riddled secondary, but besides that, you still got Brady, you still got Fournette, you still got Rod Jones, you still got Evans, Godwin, Brown, etc. So it'll be a tight game because the off the defense of the Dolphins is tricky, but going with Buccaneers to win, but Dolphins cover 27-20. So we got what could be a very low key good game next Sunday. Green Bay goes to Cincinnati. 3-1 versus 3-1. Joe Burrow versus Aaron Rodgers. Could very well be seeing the present versus the future, as if we didn't already see it on Sunday night between Brady and Mac Jones. Here we're getting Rodgers versus Joe Burrow. Packers 3-point favorite. So, I mean, if Joe Mixon was healthy, I'd have maybe a different feeling about this game. But, when Aaron Jones is actually healthy, whereas Joe Mixon is not, and that's just another element for the Packers. Plus, we'll have to see about Jesse Bates, his status. But I'm going with the Packers to win this 34-28 in the jungle in Cincinnati. Then we got the Broncos going to Pittsburgh. Steelers a 1-point favorite, which, I mean, look, Teddy Bridgewater is still in concussion protocol. Will he play? We'll have to see. Whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, I can trust their offense more than I trust Pittsburgh's offense right now, when they just seem to be sputtering, and they're still have to learn on the fly because they're still so young together. So it's just, I'm going with Denver to get the sub, get back on track. 23-19. So then we got Philadelphia going to Carolina. Panthers 3.5-point favorites. I mean, Eagles, they put up a fight for a bit against the Chiefs. Carolina, they got their first loss against the Cowboys, but they're back home. Philly's offense can be good, but I don't think it's as deep as the Cowboys is. And plus, with the injuries now and the misplacements on the O line, Mailata, he was up, he missed the game versus the Chiefs. Same with Lane Johnson due to a personal matter, but will he be back? I'm not sure. Uh, but I'm just going with the Panthers, get back on track. They win 22-16 against the Eagles. So then we got the Titans going to Jacksonville. Now, Titans going from one rookie quarterback taken at the top of the draft to another. Now they face Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You know, Titans were without AJ Brown and Julio Jones. And, that obviously affected them. I know they still scored 24 points, but you can tell it affected them. Plus, they lost their starting center in the middle of the game, so a bit of unknowns. But what I do know is Derrick Henry versus Jacksonville. Derrick Henry wins, so or has a big performance one way or another. And Jacksonville, I like their improvement on Thursday against Cincinnati, but it's just I think Mike Vrabel will get to his team because after that sore performance against Cardinals week 1, they ride it, and now I think they'll feel gut wrenched about the loss to the Jets, and now get a victory when they should. Tennessee over Jacksonville 24-17. They get back on winning ways. This game might be the game of the week. Cleveland going to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. A pick'em game. No favorites to start. So this purely based on me and my choice. Especially with what the Chargers did to the Raiders. Now, both have really good O-lines. I'd maybe favor the Browns O-line over the Chargers O-line by a bit, but the Browns, after that close loss to Chiefs week 1, they have really stayed their course. And we know the two running backs duo, the best running back duo in the NFL, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. Now, the running game for the Chargers opened up a bit tonight against the Raiders. And now, Chargers receivers are healthy, and injuries are a factor when it comes to the receiving core of the Browns. Jarvis Landry, he's hurt. OBJ, he's back. He's done decent, but he hasn't really had a breakout game. And look at both defenses. Both defenses have playmakers on the ball. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Joey Bosa, Jerry Tillery, he went out for the game. You know, Derwin James, Greg Newsome. Um, ultimately, it comes down to me Baker Mayfield versus Justin Herbert. And I love Baker. And, I love Herbert. I'm going with the Chargers by a bit. By a bit. They get a close one and win this 30-28 against the Browns. So then we got Chicago going to the Raiders. The Raiders a 5.5 point favorite. I mean, Justin Fields gonna start again. I assume for the Bears. He looked good against the Lions, but the Lions defense is so and so, and the Raiders pass rush is for certain. Now, in 2019, last we saw these teams, the Raiders took it over with the running game against the Bears, but that was with Trubisky as quarterback. You know, the secondary of the Bears is still suspect to me. And with these weapons the Raiders have, I imagine that they're going to be itching to get back on their for a win after the debacle versus the Chargers. And they get this done 28-21 in Vegas against the Bears. Then we get Cardinals hosting San Fran. Very interesting. Trey Lance makes his first career start, and it's against the lone unbeaten team in the NFL. The Cardinals, you know, Cardinals have looked very good against this Niners defense the last years, and they look more explosive. And they showed against the Rams, they're putting more stock in the running game. And while I do like the offense and the whole team of the 49ers, starting a rookie running quarterback in his first start, I just think the Cardinals are going to continue to build on this, and they win 33-20 over the 49ers. Then we get to NFC section. Cowboys, off their big win against the Panthers, hosting their rival New York Giants off their first win in overtime in New Orleans. Cowboys 7-point favorite. I mean, Daniel Jones looked better and really took it over for the Giants and being the reason